October 6, 1941. Near the town of Mtsensk, 200 miles south of Moscow. The cold autumn wind sweeps across a field of churned mud and broken birch trees. The smell of oil, exhaust, and cordite clings to the air. From behind a knocked-out Panzer III, Lieutenant Karl Fischer wipes grime from his goggles and peers through the smoke. "Panzer retelling, forward," his commander shouts over the radio. "We push through. No Soviet armor left." But the lieutenant hesitates. His ears ring from the last volley. The ground still trembles. Then a sound rises from beyond the ridge. A deep, metallic growl. Through the haze, something moves, low, broad, and fast. Not 1, 3, then 5 of them. "Was this DOS?" someone whispers. The tanks break through the smoke like steel beasts from a nightmare. Sloped armor glints in the dull light. Their wide treads crush the frozen ground. The German 50mm shells that had torn through Soviet BTs and T-20 now bounce harmlessly off these new monsters. The T-34s surge forward, 76mm guns roaring. One shell slams into a Panzer III, peeling it open like a tin can. Another hits a truck loaded with ammunition, a thunderclap, then a fireball. Karl ducks, shouting into his radio. "They're not KVs, there's something else. We can't stop them." The Soviet counterattack, led by Colonel Mikhail Katakov of the 4th Tank Brigade, has begun. His T-34s slice through the 4th Panzer Division's spearhead with terrifying efficiency. For the first time since the invasion began, German crews retreat, not from numbers, but from shock. Because what they see defies everything they've been told. "Keep firing," the German gunner yells. But even when a T-34 bursts into flame, another rolls right through the smoke. Gun steady, engine howling. The Blitzkrieg, the unstoppable storm that had crushed Poland and France. The morning after the battle, a bitter frost has fallen over Mtsensk. Smoke still curls from the wrecks scattered across the fields, the twisted hulks of panzers, trucks, and half-tracks. Lieutenant Karl Fischer walks among them, his breath visible in the cold air. He stops in front of one of the Soviet tanks that now lies silent, its crew burned inside. The metal is blackened, but the shape is unmistakable, strange and alien to German eyes. A sharply angled hull, sloping armor that deflected their shells like rain off a roof. Fischer crouches, running a gloved hand over the thick steel. He can smell the burnt paint and oil. "This is not possible," he mutters. "No tank should move this fast or survive that much fire." Nearby, Hauptmann Hermann Bulk, commander of the 3rd Panzer Regiment, studies the same wreck. His field glasses hang loosely at his neck. "Sloped armor," he says quietly. "Our 37mm and 50mm guns, useless." He turns to his men. "Tell Berlin, we need heavier guns and better armor." Now, the T-34's arrival was not a surprise to Soviet engineers. It was the culmination of years of quiet innovation. Designed by Mikhail Koshkin and Alexander Morozov in the late 1930s, the T-34 was meant to fight in Russia's endless plains and brutal winters. Wide tracks to handle mud and snow. Diesel engines that didn't ignite easily. A 76.2mm gun that could kill anything Germany fielded in 1941. When the invasion began in June, few T-34s were ready. But those that were, around 1,000 across the front, became legends overnight. Reports from the 4th Panzer Division described ghosts made of steel, tanks that could appear from the smoke, take 5 direct hits, and keep moving. One officer wrote home, "It climbs hills that would stall our engines, crosses trenches like they are puddles, and returns fire faster than we can reload." German crews began giving it a nickname whispered in disbelief, Der neue Russisch Teufelspanzer, the new Russian devil tank. Still, the Wehrmacht was nothing if not resourceful. Engineers scrambled to study captured examples. Orders went out to reinforce Panzer IVs with long-barreled 75mm guns. But in 1941, those upgrades were still months away. At Mtsensk, as dusk fell on October 7th, the survivors of the 4th Panzer Division pulled back in silence. Their tanks were battered, their morale shaken. They had advanced 1,500 miles in just 4 months, and now, for the first time, they were stopped. As night descended, Karl Fischer looked east toward Moscow. The horizon glowed red with artillery fire, and in that glow, he swore he could see them again. dark shapes moving through the smoke. October 8, 1941. At a temporary command post west of Mtsensk, General Heinz Guderian studies a hastily drawn map spread across a wooden table. His staff officers stand silently, their faces drawn from exhaustion. Outside, engines rumble and wounded men groan as they're loaded onto half-tracks. Guderian's finger traces the line where his 4th Panzer Division was supposed to advance. Instead, the line is now broken, replaced by a smear of red pencil. Soviet counterattack zone. He exhales slowly, the smoke from his cigarette curling toward the lamplight. They came out of nowhere, he mutters. Fast. Too fast for their size. His aide, Major Osso von Manschufel, replies quietly. And they hit like a hammer, her general. The German army prided itself on precision, momentum, and morale. Every advance since Poland had been a symphony of speed. Tanks, artillery, infantry, all in perfect rhythm. But now, that rhythm faltered. Reports poured in from other sectors. At Bryansk, more T-34s. At Vyazma, they cut through flanking units. At Kaluga, a platoon of 6 destroyed 14 panzers before withdrawing. The legend of invincibility, the heartbeat of Blitzkrieg, was cracking. Meanwhile, deep in Soviet lines, Colonel Mikhail Katakov receives new orders. His 4th Tank Brigade has done the impossible, halted Guderian's advance. His crews, exhausted but ecstatic, stand beside their mud-caked T-34s. Some tanks bear scars from dozens of hits, yet still run. A Soviet mechanic laughs bitterly, slapping the hull of his tank. They call it steel, he says, but this is Russian soul. Katakov writes in his diary that night. The Germans are learning fear, not of men, but of what men can build. And he's right. Across the front, German ordnance officers rush to examine captured T-34s. They pry open the armor plates, study the sloped design, measure the gun barrel, and send frantic reports to Berlin. A young engineer at Krupp writes, its angles are genius. No matter where you hit, you don't hit square. We must copy this. Those words will later influence the Panther tank, Germany's answer to the T-34. But that is still far away. For now, in the autumn of 1941, the Wehrmacht faces an enemy it doesn't fully understand. As the sun sets on the steppe, the fires of battle fade into eerie quiet. The landscape is dotted with burning tanks, black silhouettes against an orange sky. Lieutenant Fischer leans against the side of his battered Panzer III, listening to the soft tick of the cooling engine. He whispers to his gunner, "They said Moscow would fall in weeks." The gunner doesn't answer. He just stares eastward, watching the dark horizon where the T-34s disappeared. For the first time since the war began, they feel something unfamiliar, not defeat, but doubt. And doubt, in war, spreads faster than any enemy. November 1941. The first snow has fallen across the Russian plains, blanketing the wreckage of Mtsensk in white. Engines freeze overnight. Oil thickens. Breath turns to ice in seconds. Lieutenant Karl Fischer sits inside his Panzer III, wrapped in a wool blanket. His hands tremble, not from fear this time, but from cold. The temperature outside has plunged below -30. Even the mighty German war machine, so precise and efficient, begins to break under nature's assault. The radio crackles. New orders. Defensive positions until further notice. Moscow offensive delayed. Fischer closes his eyes. Delayed. That word hadn't existed in the Blitzkrieg vocabulary before. He thinks of the T-34s. Those beasts had seemed unstoppable in autumn mud. Now, in this frozen wasteland, they're practically made for it. Their wide tracks glide over snowdrifts where panzer wheels sink and spin uselessly. Their diesel engines start even in sub-zero cold, while German gasoline turns to jelly. Across the front, the Wehrmacht learns a bitter truth. The greatest enemy in Russia is not just the Red Army, it's the land itself. Meanwhile, Soviet factories east of the Urals run day and night. Thousands of T-34s roll out monthly, painted in dull green, their armor welded by men and women who have lost brothers and sons at the front. Each tank is a promise, a steel reply to the German invasion. Inside one such factory in Nizhny Tagil, sparks fly as workers shout over the thunder of machinery. A supervisor yells, "No rest." Every hour, one tank. And somehow, they make it happen. Back on the front line, Fischer's unit receives a new order: hold position near Tula. The men whisper rumors that Moscow is only 50 miles away, that the Soviets are retreating again. But as dawn breaks, they see movement through the snowstorm. Dark shapes, dozens of them. More T-34s, Fischer mutters, gripping his binoculars. He watches as they emerge from the swirling snow, whitewashed for winter, their hulls almost invisible. A nightmare reborn. The German guns open fire, flashes lighting up the frozen fields. Shells strike and ricochet, sparks vanishing in the snow. The T-34s keep coming, engines roaring, tracks grinding ice and steel. Then the Soviet artillery joins in. The ground shakes as explosions ripple across the German lines. The panzers fire until their barrels glow red. But it's not enough. By nightfall, the German spearhead has fractured. The advance toward Moscow collapses into retreat. At headquarters, Guderian radios Berlin. The Russians are counterattacking with tanks we cannot destroy. Our troops are exhausted. The offensive cannot continue. Berlin's response is cold, impersonal. Hold your ground. But the truth is already clear. The Blitzkrieg has frozen solid. Fischer writes one last note in his logbook that night. They say the Soviets have endless land. But it's not the land that breaks us. It's what crawls out of it. Outside, the snow falls silently over the battlefield. In the distance, the glow of burning tanks flickers beneath the northern lights, steel tombs on a frozen steppe. And through that shimmering haze, the ghosts of T-34s still move, endlessly advancing.